How are you guys? Good morning. Sorry I'm running late. Just one more moment. I want to open up YouTube in case you guys have any questions. While we're learning, I will be able to answer those. So let me just open up YouTube on my other device here really quick and we'll get started. Hope you guys are doing well. While I'm doing that, if you could go ahead and let me know that you hear me okay and that you can see the Jira Scrum boards unlocked screen, that will really help me to know. Let's see here. Just bear with me. Almost there, just logging in. Beautiful. Now I'm in. Let me go to this live so I can kind of see our chatting. Awesome. This will help me. Awesome, you can hear and see, everything's good. Okay, I can see your text now and we can get started. Let me go ahead and turn off this screen and say good morning. Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me very well, my name is Cassie. I am the founder of Your Solution Architect. We are an Atlassian partner. So the things that I'm teaching you today, I actually help other companies implement and I get paid to help them implement. So these are real world examples that I usually will give during my lessons. And so today's topic is Scrum boards, right? Jira Scrum boards unlocked. So we're going to dive deep into Scrum boards. What's Scrum? We'll do a little basic of what Scrum is first, and then we'll dive into how to configure your Scrum board and all the tips and tricks that I use. All right, so I won't waste much more time. We're going to dive right in. Let me get that screen open for you. Beautiful. So here you should see my Scrum board. So to actually do this lesson, I'm going to use a Scrum board very much like my prior Kanban lesson that I did last week. If you missed that and you're interested in knowing more about that, feel free to just follow my YouTube channel here and you'll be able to catch that lesson as well. So let's dive in and open up our Scrum card here. So more about Scrum. Scrum is an agile framework, or just simply put, a way of working. This allows teams to use to develop or maintain complex projects, basically. So Scrum is not Agile, and Agile is not Scrum. This is often confused. Scrum is a way of working that's goal is to continuously ship or get work items done, where Agile is a set of values and principles. So that totally means you can adopt Scrum framework without adopting the Agile framework. So you can do one without the other. Yes, it will help you work in a more agile way, introducing Scrum into your life, but it isn't actually Agile. They're two different things. So I definitely wanted to clarify that from the beginning. So we've handled that one. I will move it into done for now. Now, Scrum has a series of artifacts, and those artifacts are a product backlog, a sprint backlog, and an increment. So what is a product backlog? That's essentially your to-do list of work items that is typically maintained by your product owner, who then uses these work items in this backlog to plan the sprint backlog. So basically all the work in this product backlog will hopefully eventually move in to a sprint backlog. And that sprint backlog is the list of work items that the developmental team will be working on in your sprint. So you're going to break down the backlog into incremental bite-sized chunks of work that you're going to do in a sprint, which is a span of time. That that is often referred to as an increment as well. So when you're planning that sprint, you want to figure out what the goal of that sprint is, and that is your increment. Essentially the goal or the end product of the sprint. So in planning your sprint, the increment is essentially your definition of done for the entire sprint. So let's explore how, with using a Jira Scrum board, what features help you use and implement that Scrum framework, okay? So I think the most important part that you have to talk about are the sprints, all right? We talked about sprints briefly, but a sprint is a short work period, usually about 1 to 4 weeks, where the team completes those specific tasks or work items that are coming over from the backlog into this sprint backlog. Instead of trying to tackle a huge project all at once, your sprint breaks it down into manageable chunks. When the sprint is usually happening, you'll actually have a pre-sprint planning meeting. That's where the team meets and answers 2 questions. What can we accomplish in this sprint, and how will we do it, right? So important. The product owner will share the sprint goal and suggest tasks or work items from the backlog, kind of like a prioritized to-do list, and together the team will decide which items they can realistically complete in that span of time. These chosen work items get dragged into the sprint backlog. And we're gonna do this in just a minute here live in our Scrum board, which is pretty cool. During the sprint, once the sprint's going, the team holds quick daily stand-ups just to check in on progress and flag any problems that they have on their work. So they might have work items that are blocked, and they might need to bring that up to the team so that the team can kind of work together to solve the blocked items. And it keeps saying tasks, but what I really mean is just work items in general. They're moved from to do to in progress to done. So the goal is kind of move it through that workflow. And we're going to talk about those workflows and how they equate to our board here in a moment. And then after the sprint is wrapped up, you'll have a sprint review. The team will show the completed work to the stakeholders, and then they'll have a sprint retrospective that's internal to the team to discuss what went well and what could be improved on next time. Then the cycle starts all over again, and you have a new sprint running and all of that. So let's create a sprint backlog together and move things from our product backlog into it. All right, so I'm gonna put this in progress. All right, so on our Jira Scrum board here, our backlog used to be on the left-hand panel, but they've actually changed that recently. You'll find it at the top, okay? If for some reason you are on a Scrum board and you don't see backlog, it might have accidentally gotten hidden. If that is the case, you're gonna come over to more and you're just gonna find it here. So watch, I'll hide it, I'll remove it. Oh, actually, I can't remove the backlog from this one. Oh, so luckily you can't remove it because for other parts in this, I can actually remove. So good, they don't let you remove it, thankfully. So you're gonna click into backlog and you're gonna come in, and I actually have a sprint already created that is probably overdue for completion because I gave this lesson live at an event, and I am using it for you guys as well. I thought you guys would value from it. So let's first start a sprint, and I'm gonna kind of drag these things back to the backlog. Yeah, it's gonna mess up my reporting, but this is a demo project and I don't really care. Okay, it's just gonna yell at me. So as I drag these, because you'll have a bunch of tickets in your backlog where all of mine are currently sitting in the sprint. So let's just move them back. And doing this will affect your sprint scope. And that is a report that Jira generates for you So I'm going to show you that as well at the end, hopefully, if we have time. We might not get to reporting. This is a big lesson. All right, so if we wanted to create a new, so let's say these sprints didn't exist and we wanted to create a new sprint, we just hit create sprint. You'll notice something though, when I create the sprint and I create multiple, it automatically just keeps a sequential value. So pro tip, when you are naming your sprints, you definitely want to name it in a way where the number will fall and create a sequential, so then you don't have to come in and rename the sprint every time. So you can use this to your advantage. But if for some reason you're not really happy with the name of this sprint, you can come here and you can click edit sprint and you can change the name to whatever you want, okay? This is also where you can set duration of time. So if your sprint is typical and it lasts 2 weeks, you can do 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or you can choose a custom range. So no worries. Here is where we're going to write that sprint goal, or in the framework, the Scrum framework, we are actually going to create that increment, because that's what they call it. The increment is the sprint goal. So this is the increment or goal of completing these work items. You definitely want to list that there, because this is great data for your team to have in case they're not sure the why behind the work that they're doing. You definitely want to give them the why. You can hit update. And now you'll actually see that description of the sprint goal right here under the sprint. So fill it in. This can be very valuable. I've also seen people use this for notes to tell people directions. So you can get creative using the goal section for other things, of course, as well. Then during your sprint planning meeting, you can come to your backlog and you can drag up the work that you intend to do in this sprint. So we're going to talk about all these things today. We're going to drag them up. All right. And then once you guys all agree that this is the work your team is going to do together, then you can start your sprint. Here, it's letting me know that I haven't used any estimation. So if your team uses story points or time estimates in order to weigh the value of their work or how long something might take to give a guess of, how heavy of a lift is it? I'm not sure how else to put it. So I have also seen t-shirt sizes used. So this is reminding you that you didn't fill that in on your tickets, on your work items. So if that is important to your team, you just need to make sure you add that estimate field to your work item screens, and then you can fill them in. For me, it's not really important in our sample. It's letting me know how many will be included, and I'm going to hit start. Beautiful. So now my active sprints board, this is my sprint backlog basically. This is exactly all the tickets I drug into my sprint, so I'll see them here. So when you're net new and you create a project with a Scrum board, you might have a lot of tickets, but you hit create and they're not showing on this kind of Kanban style board. It's because you don't have any sprints started or turned on, and you don't have any tickets in that started sprint, okay? So if it is empty, that is why, all right? So that is how you create a sprint and manage the sprint itself and the sprint planning, okay? But what happens if you are finished a sprint? So you're going to go back to your backlog where your sprint backlogs are, and you're just going to complete the sprint, right? So now it's telling you can actually create a retrospective kind of work item and complete the sprint. you can do this by creating a Confluence document, which will tell you what was completed in the sprint. For this example, it's not going to give us a very good, a very good visual because I don't have a lot of data in here and what items were in this sprint. We moved out of it to demo how to create a sprint. So it'll actually create a whiteboard of all the cool things that went down in this sprint and give you a template that you can fill in together live, which is really awesome. So you could start filling it in and adding things to your whiteboard here. And now this becomes a living document inside of Confluence for you. So you can rename it and call it Sprint Retro. And then obviously which sprint number, which I don't remember which one it was, and things like that. So very awesome. The nice thing is it saves as you edit, so you don't have to worry about it auto saves, so you don't have to worry about it. Once you're finished your sprint retrospective, you could copy the link and then hit not now. They don't really have after you hit copy, it doesn't leave. So it's really nice because then you can go into Confluence with that link. Let's see if it copied it for me. And you can review you have a living record of this retrospective, which is pretty cool. So it really is robust in helping you to, capture all those important elements in the framework of Scrum, right? Because those Scrum artifacts are what make up that framework. We have our product backlog, which is in our board we just call backlog. And then we have our sprint backlog, which is when we're dragging up those tickets into there. And then on the sprint card, we have our increment or sprint goal. And then, we have the actions of how we work through a sprint and what we do during and after the sprint. So we even get to capture that retrospective, which is so cool. So it's all built in for you. So let's go ahead and move sprints over here. All right, so we often get confused between versions and sprints, right? This kind of feels almost interchangeable in the Atlassian language, but truly a version is supposed to be a specific release of a product. That can make up actually work for multiple sprints. So let's use a good example. I used to support a gaming company, right? And this gaming company would do a release or a version of all the things they've worked on over the quarter into the game, right? So there would be multiple sprints that make up that quarter where they were working, and multiple teams had all different sprints. This particular gaming company was like a vehicle, they made like aircraft vehicles in their game. So they had like a vehicle team. There were people, right, in the game. So they had an art team that was dedicated to just people. All of these teams had their own sprints. So those releases of that into the game, it just looked like one thing, but multiple sprints made up releasing that particular episode, maybe of the game, right? So really cool. So in Jira, you can also create versions. So I will admit that now saying that, I've blanked where to create them. But if I remember right, for some reason my brain is gone blank, but I believe they're in space settings, and I think if I go, they're here on the left. But I teach all new people to come into summary to take a look at all the items rather than having to know where to click, because this menu is ever changing and confusing because you have things hidden inside, and if you don't know where they are hidden, you won't be able to find them. So to my rookies in the room, click summary. It'll save you so much time hunting and pecking, trying to find what you need. So you'll see here that I have versions and they can be created here. I think that I can't create a version because it's permission related. So I don't have permission, but if you do have permission, you'll be able to come right here and create a version, which is pretty cool. And you'll be able to throw all the work items for that version into there. So let's see if it'll let me. Actually, I can do it here in the version section, which is good. So you could create, this is a version. You can make the version span. Remember, these aren't going to usually be sprint dates. These might be a whole quarter. Who knows, right? So maybe we're going to say from November to January 31st is going to be our version. And this is the release of episode 3 in our game. We'll just use gaming as our example since we're already kind of down that track. Cool. So we create it. The cool thing is you can add this version now to your work items regardless of what sprint they're in. So if your work item is, or you have many work items that you've completed, but they're all making up this version. Version is simply a field with a value. You can select this version on that field. So let's take a look at one of our tickets and see if I have the version field on here. Let's take a peeky. Might not even have the version field on my screen. That's not the end of the world. There you go. So we will be able to actually select the version. Remember, unreleased versions will show together and then released versions will show separate. So right now I don't have any released versions, but as you add tickets to this version, you can actually pull a version report. Let's see if I can add a few, but not all. Here we go. Cool. So add a few, but not all. And then we'll go back to our version section. I'm just gonna hit the back button a couple times. Or maybe not, maybe it'll be quicker. Come in here to versions. Now you'll actually see the burn down of this version, and you can dive into this version and it actually creates a version kind of report page where you'll be able to see what work items are in this version. So cool. You can add related work into here and you can link designs from your design team. There's just so much you can do about this version, and you can really create a robust documentation surrounding the version. Pretty awesome, right? All right, let's go back. So versions are a critical part of Scrum. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so we also have something called a Scrum timeline. The Scrum timeline is a great place to kind of see all of your planned work, all of your versions, and all of your sprints in one view. That's pretty awesome. You can actually plan and schedule your work directly from this timeline styled view. I think a lot of people refer to this as a Gantt view, which I'll show you in demo here in a minute. I will, anyways, it will actually eventually start automatically filling in your sprint field once you start scheduling your work too. So you could set it up that if you put the due date of a particular work item on that work item ticket, and that due date falls within a sprint, it will actually put that sprint for you if you want it to, of course. So pretty cool. You can do that really easily. So sometimes instead of using the sprint backlog kind of view, you could use the timeline view to do planning for multiple sprints. I hope that makes sense. So you don't want to, if you're trying to plan multiple sprints, it's better probably to do that in your timeline. And I'll show you. The only catch for this is you must have epics and the parent field and all of your work items filled in for this to work, because this view, and I'm going to show you now, actually uses the epic to plan out the work. Although an epic can span multiple sprints, so this epic, if we had work in it that was also in a sprint down the road, an epic can technically span multiple sprints, right? But in our use case, we just have all of our work in sprint 2. So let's kind of adjust that really quick. Sprint 2, backlog 3. So you see this makes no sense. Let's create another sprint. And we are going to actually, sprint 2, backlog 3, that has literally the same name, doesn't it? We will edit the sprint. We're going to call it sprint 4, just for our visual. It's going to really help us. And let's take a couple of these tickets we haven't gotten to yet and put them here. It's going to tell me that, is it not going to let me because the sprint, I might have to go to the backlog first. Sometimes it's like tricky. If it's being weird, you can always just come to the sprint field and adjust it. Sometimes the drag and drop doesn't want to cooperate. But no worries, you could just control it with the sprint field. So it's actually good to show you that. So if we put the dates on this sprint for our example, we put them, I don't remember what our other sprint date was. We'll say this sprint is 2 weeks, but let's start it on the 3rd. Okay, we're gonna hit update. So now when we're viewing our timeline, you notice our parent or epic ticket inherited the dates from the child tickets, right? And now our epic spans multiple sprints. Cool. It looks great. So this is what I mean by if you're planning multiple sprints, you might instead come into these tickets and just adjust their due date. And if you give them a due date, so let's give this one, let's remove its sprint field. Right? Let's remove that completely. But let's give it a due date in sprint 4. So let's just pick a date. Let's say 12/15, I think will work. So 12/15, 2025. You can also select, I like to type. All right. And then our start date, let's say its start date is 12/4. Okay. Hopefully this one's using these fields, because sometimes it's not using the fields for that. So let's see if we refresh this, if it'll throw it in the sprint for us. Oh, didn't like it. I think it might be because we're in there, it's using a different set of date fields. So you could always just hover. It does have it showing the blue now, but it doesn't have it with a date. So you could actually just click and put it in there. I think it's because it might be looking at other date fields that I don't have on my ticket at this time. So you just need to make sure it's the correct date fields, but it will inherit it and kind of say, okay, maybe you need it in that sprint, which is really cool. I'd have to dive into why later, but it might be because it was already in a sprint and I've confused the whole thing. But it really does make it a lot easier to kind of just drag multiple things into the correct sprints and make sure that you can plan accordingly, which is really cool. And as you see, oops, didn't mean to click on that, it's in my way. As you see, I also can see my versions at the top. So we know that all of this work that we're doing is going to probably be released in version 2 rather than in this version, because all of this work will be done in time for version 2, which is really cool. So it kind of helps you visualize everything in one-stop shop. You can even see prior versions that are past their date. This one should have been released, but it has not, so it has a little red error on it and whatnot. My pro tip is, though, you don't fill out anything on the parent ticket. Don't fill out any due dates of any sort. You just leave them all blank, because on this view, it will inherit whatever you change the children to. So if I was to take these child tickets and drag them back into the other sprint, the parent ticket will actually adjust. You see, that one's cooperating today. So you'll see that, and then that sprint has changed. It's telling me the same alert, like, oh, you're gonna have a scope change and all of that. So anytime you move things in and out of a already started sprint, you're gonna kind of be messing the reporting up. All right, so let's take a look at what else we have left. All right, so that's a bit about the timeline and how to use it. I actually wanted to show you one more thing on here. You have a lot of quick filters and things on the timeline, but you also can configure your timeline. So when you're in your, here it is, by start. See, that's why when I put the start and due dates, it didn't grab the tickets. It's going by sprint dates. So they had to probably match. And you can basically turn on being able to see the child work items if you want. So if yours is only showing your epic but not the work items, you probably need to come into this timeline settings and adjust it, which is cool. You can also turn off the timeline if you're not interested in using it, or maybe use Jira plans to do your overall sprint planning and you don't really need the timeline view. Totally fine. We'll jump into more Scrum board settings in a minute when we get there. Cool. All right. So let's talk about components. What are components? Everyone has a different view on what we should use Jira components for, but straight from Atlassian, Jira components are there to help you group work items in your space or project around product features, departments, or work streams. Okay, so the mystery is solved. It's a way to categorize or group your work items together. You can assign the component an owner, and you can even set up an auto assign rule based on the component and the component configuration. So let's take a look at components really quick and how you can kind of configure this. So you could go into project settings or space settings, and you can actually see components here. But again, if you go to summary, components should be somewhere on here. Here you go. And unlike this one where it doesn't have the link to action, you can actually action from the component section here. So I think they've messed up a little bit. I don't have Compass at the moment, so I'm just going to create a Jira component for now. You can switch back. Compass allows you to create cross-project components, basically, so global components. If you're creating a project-only component, you would have to recreate this component in the other projects. So the difference between the two really is that Compass allows you to have cross-project components. Very valuable. But I don't want to set up Compass at this time. It's pretty much the same when you're creating the component in general. You're just going to create the component by giving it a name. We'll just say component, we'll say vehicles. Vehicle. And then we're going to select a lead for this component. And this is where I said components can be very valuable because you could create that default assignee. So if I want to assign everything to the component lead, I can actually do that. I can also set it to the space owner or the lead of this space, or you can leave it unassigned. So I'm going to leave mine unassigned because I want anybody who's working on vehicles to just see the vehicles tickets and grab what they're working on in our sprint planning. Pretty cool. So now we have a component. Components are just like any other Jira field now. Now that we have one, we can populate that data on one of our tickets. And a quick hack, in case you've never used this little search bar, you can use the search bar to jump back to the ticket you previously had open. So pro tip, instead of trying to find it again, if you've had it completely open, and by completely I mean the full version, not the preview, it will show up here in your search bar, which is pretty cool, and help you jump back to it. So now we can actually put a component probably on this ticket, and it's a selectable value. You can also in some cases, you could create a component too. I know you can with labels as well from a ticket. If you're a pro tip, if you're trying to create multiple components in a brand new Jira project, you can actually import that value by updating a ticket. So you could take an Excel sheet and have one Jira ticket like this one or work item. And you could update this work item many, many times with all the components that you wanted as selectable values. You could do this with any field type. So I have a rule of thumb. If it's more than 10 values, I'm importing. And by importing, I mean I'm just updating the same ticket over and over with a new value each time when I import. And that is my little hack. There is some documentation surrounding that. It does exist out there on Atlassian's forums. So if you can't find it, feel free to ping me on the YouTube channel and I will surface the link for you. But don't create more than 10 selectable items or options, even in components or in any value really, by hand. Save your time. All right, so that's how you do components, and a little pro tip about importing multiple. And then we have our calendar. I love calendars because I like really seeing that scheduled view. Maybe it's the mom in me. I am a mother of 3 kids, and having a calendar is extremely important to me. And the calendar view basically allows you to see the versions where that you have scheduled, where in a Scrum board you don't see versions and sprints, obviously. So both the Kanban and the Scrum board have this, if you haven't hidden them. So let's take a look at the calendar. So here's the calendar. Like I said, you can hide this if it's not useful to you, so hit remove. If you can't find it and you want it, just come in here to more, the plus sign, I apologize, and hit, make sure it's selected and hit add to navigation. And then it'll reappear. And if you didn't know, you can basically drag and drop any of these in the order in which you want them. And here you'll see the sprints that we created and all of that. Isn't it beautiful? So we got our sprints, and then you'll have our version release date. So the cool thing about this calendar is you can actually take a look at your unscheduled work right here and decide when it can fit into your calendar. And then you can also change how you see things as well. And if you, for some reason, don't want to see sprints, but you want to see releases, you can toggle that on and off. And if you have a team that works over weekend, you can actually add weekends to your calendar and change which day of the week your calendar starts on. So incredibly helpful. And then you can have a little sidebar as well. So lots of cool things hidden in the settings. So definitely poke around and prod. You can also jump to today if you've kind of scrolled past to today, which I find really helpful. The cool thing is your filters work as well. So if we wanted to filter by component, we could technically do that. And did change this, I think, down here. Something changed, but it allows you to filter just like any of your board items here. You can also search your calendar for certain things. If you're looking for a certain sprint, you don't know when it starts, you could search for that, or a certain release. So pretty cool. All right, so let's go into our active sprints. All right, now we've basically covered all of the nitty-gritty details that make up a Scrum style board. In my Kanban board session, I did go through how to edit and show this particular Kanban styled view, how to edit this view. So I just want to show you as well how you would actually change these kind of columns here. Is you could come in to board settings. Now you do have to have permission for this. So if for some reason you don't have that, it is permission related. You do need to be a board administrator. So whoever is the board admin will need to add you. If you are a Jira admin, you can figure out who is the board admin and add yourself by coming up to your Jira admin cog. I believe it's in system. And if you scroll down to boards, I know it says dashboards, but if you scroll down to boards, you could figure out who owns any of the boards and change the board owner. So you can hijack it. You can also take a look at the filter from this view. The filter is really important because just because you shared the board with someone doesn't mean they can see the work items. They might have project access and have view rights, but then they might still come to you and say, I still can't see anything on the board, and you're stumped. That's usually because the filter itself is not being shared properly. So you want to make sure that the filter itself is being shared with the people who need to view it, because otherwise that's a big hurdle. They won't be able to see it. If you're unsure, you could click into filter details and you can see your current permissions. So my permissions state that anyone who has access to this space or project has access to view this board. Pretty cool. I also have work item ranking on. What is that? That's when you can drag and drop and order the tickets instead of kind of using a priority field to order them. You can just drag them up and place them in the order you want them to be. That is called ranking. The rank is actually kind of a data field that's hidden, but it is a value that when you drag and drop, it's filling in that field with a value, giving it a different rank, which is pretty cool. That's how it works behind the scenes. And like I said, you can see my filter permissions. So I have which spaces are pulled into the board, and then my filter permissions are down here and who can do what. So I can edit. Anybody with access to this project can view. You could click edit permissions here, and that's just going to take you basically to the filter permissions and edit it there. Remember to hit the add button when you're adding someone, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So you might think you've added it and then hit save, but it's not going to add it. You have to hit add, because if it's not in this little list down here, it's not actually being added. So then you would hit save. And now that updates your permissions, okay? So it's really important. But say you're actually in the filter itself. How do you do that in the filter? Really quickly, it's really easy. You're gonna come into filter details and you're gonna edit permissions. And it's gonna bring you to that same pop-up window, which is pretty cool. And you can edit the permissions there and hit save. Nice and easy. All right, cool. All right, so then you also have the layout of that kind of Kanban style board that we saw. If you come into it, you can adjust the columns. The columns can be configured however you want them to be. You can call them whatever you want, but how do you get the statuses? Those come from the workflows workflow statuses of the work items you have in this project. So most of the time you'll have all the statuses in one of the columns or another, right? But occasionally maybe two teams are using this project and one has a workflow status that the other team never uses. They can actually just unmap it by like dragging it over here if they wanted. I have my backlog items in my to-do. A lot of people don't, but I did that on purpose for the demo. So a lot of people don't put these in a column because they don't want items in backlog to show. They just want items that they've selected for development or they've moved forward in the status to show, which is cool. Lastly, the most important thing when talking about columns is that the done column, great, that tells us these items are done or completed or, resolved, whichever word you prefer. But Jira actually doesn't know these tickets are actually done or completed or resolved unless you set the magic resolution field. That's really important. So if you're not setting it through your workflow or having a user fill in the resolution, you do need to do that through the column, because if not, your reporting tools will not show these items as completed or done. The resolution field is how it knows. Now, swim lanes are a way to create horizontal looking like sections on your board, the board that we just saw. So you can actually show this like that and turn it on, and that's going to create sections on this view. But let's see, I don't think I have many things assigned. All right, let's assign this one to Christy. Okay, so you'll see that starts creating these horizontal like groupings of tickets, if you will. So you could do that as well. And I'm just going through these quickly because again, I cover them more in depth on Scrum boards. You can also do cool things with the colors of your cards and change the fields that you do see on the preview of each card, work item card that you see there. So if you're interested in diving into these, please subscribe to the channel. Go to the Kanban board lesson that is recorded there for you. And I cover all of these really in depth, okay? All right. So we have a little bit of time to take some questions. Do we have any questions from those at home watching? Don't think we have any. Did you guys find this helpful? Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, so I know to continue work training sessions of these type in the future. Also, I did say that if I had a little bit of time, I would show you some of the reporting that you can have in a project. I'm not even sure. I think I might have reports hidden. So let me look. I don't know why I don't see it here. Interesting. It's usually right here on the left, but they've moved so many things around. Oh, here, it's at the top now. So you could click into the reports at the top, and you have many different ticket types that have many different types of reports. And you can dive into those and actually create your own unique reports about the current sprint, or maybe you want to pull reporting about the sprint you recently closed and kind of see burn down. But because we moved and dragged and dropped things so much, you won't see good data on mine. I would say give your teams a couple of sprints and then start really focusing on reporting, because it takes a little bit of practice getting going and seeing all of that. So mine aren't going to really show much, but you can dive into reports. Pretty much all the kind of agile style reports that you might want should be here, which is pretty cool. All right, even the epic burn down. Well, it was really great. I'm loving the feedback in the chat. Everybody seems to really have liked it. Please support me by giving the video a thumbs up. That really helps this reach other people to help them. And I will show my face again and say goodbye. All right, bye everyone. It was nice teaching you guys today. There'll be another session, I think next, I don't know if it's Wednesday or Thursday, so just keep a lookout. Also, if you follow the channel, whenever I have a live scheduled, it alerts you. So feel free to give us a follow and have